A broadcast service of City College and the San Diego Community College District. This is Jazz FM 88.3 KSDS San Diego. I'm Dave Drexler with Inside Art. Support for Inside Art comes from the members of San Diego's Jazz 88.3. I'm Dave Drexler with Inside Art. San Diego-based pianist, organist, and composer Hindy Bare, a classically trained Berklee College of Music attendee and longtime member of the Fuzzy Rankins Band, has released her debut album as a leader, with drummer Richard Sellers, bassist Rob Thorson and Kevin Cooper, guitarist Hank Easton, and saxophonist Dan Boise. Jillo is inspired by historian and humanist Jill Ker Conway, who was the first woman president of Smith College and a National Humanities Medal recipient. This digital album and CD, which will soon be released on audiophile vinyl as well, is centered around a three-part Jill Ker Conway jazz suite and other pieces that showcase Hindy's blues, R&B, and soul influences. Hindy Bare, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Inside Art.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on this release. You have a long and circuitous career to get there the first time.
Yes, I did, and thank you. It's been a journey.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that journey. You grew up in Colorado, is that right?
Yes, Boulder, Colorado.
And studied classical music there. Eventually, you made your way to Boston's Berklee College of Music, where you studied with the great Donald Brown from the Jazz Messengers.
Yes, I did. I met Donald Brown on a summer session. I went to take a summer session at the Berklee College of Music, and I kept in touch with him. And yes, I was very fortunate to meet him and briefly study with him.
Well, what did you take away from your time with him as far as your development?
He really gave me a sense of the history of jazz and where it came from, the fact that it's a language. Just even speaking to him, he has so much knowledge about the music. So just being able to tap into somebody that has that much knowledge and that much talent was a real gift.
And who are some of the jazz artists that have inspired you, as a musician, as an instrumentalist all these years?
Well, I think that the person I love the most is Kenny Barron, but of course, Herbie Hancock is, I think, they're all geniuses, but he's very inspirational. And being a blues person, I like people like Gene Harris, sort of a blues and jazz mix of a pianist. So yeah, there's so many, but those three are definitely people I've listened to a lot.
So you've been playing a long time, and during the pandemic, I understand you decided to go back to get a master's degree at the San Diego State Jazz Studies program.
Yes. I sort of wasted the first part of the pandemic, but then I realized I was not going to get anything done. And I got into SDSU and was very happy, even though it was kind of weird during the pandemic because we had to wear masks and rehearse outside. It was still a really great opportunity and a chance to dig. I hadn't really focused on jazz since way back when I went to Berklee. I sort of dabbled in it, but I got a chance to really focus on it a little bit more during the time I was in school.
Okay, well, this new album has come out of that experience. Tell us a little bit about what led to your interest in first Jill Ker Conway and then making this suite about her.
Yeah, well, I wish it was more glamorous, but it was an assignment for school to write a suite. And I had recently read one of her books, and Jill Ker Conway is she is an inspiring story because she grew up in rural Australia and she was just a brilliant person and managed to sort of to rise to the ranks of academia and become a leading intellectual and historian. And I liked her because it is a feminist story, but she was so focused on all of humanity. She wasn't only interested in, giving women a chance. She wanted everybody to be able to fulfill their potential. So that resonated with me. And her life was interesting. So it gave me a chance to write different kinds of music based on the different periods of her life.
So how did you start off the whole compositional process and how did it develop?
Well, I started off thinking, okay, this is the beginning, her early life. And her early life was living on this sheep farm in Australia. And the way she described the landscape and her experience, she was just sort of free running around the landscape, but also had a lot of responsibility. So I guess I focused mostly on just the way she described the landscape. And so one phrase, she said something like that it was silvery gray. And so I sort of thought this 12/8 feel was sort of this um, ongoing swirling landscape that through the eyes of a child. And so that gave me the inspiration to write that piece, sort of a poignant yet free feeling that she described. And then the second piece, I guess I wrote them in order, strangely, even though they're not in order on the CD. But the second piece was sort of about, when she went to school, she couldn't go, she went to Radcliffe because Harvard still wasn't accepting women at that point. And it was difficult. She came from Australia, which has a really pretty serious drinking culture. And she ended up drinking maybe a little bit much. And it was hard for her to navigate the academic world. And so that one is sort of written with some turmoil and angst in it. I tried to make it seem that way. And so it's sort of like a hard bop type of piece. And I tried to capture a little bit of chaos and a little bit of things getting a little bit out of control, maybe, going over round and round and having some sort of there's a sort of a bridge that has sort of a dark feel to it. Like, I don't know if I want to say hit bottom, but definitely things seemed a little bit dark at that point. And then the final one, called Wiser, which is the first one on the CD, is sort of about hitting your groove later in life and sort of having been through a lot of experiences and being wiser, even though it's spelled differently than most people would spell wiser. But yeah, so that's more about sort of being able to sit back and having learned from your experiences and feel good about it.
How did you enjoy the process of recording all these pieces? I know that can be a little nerve-wracking for some artists who haven't done it for as a leader, particularly.
Yes, well, the way that happened was that I asked Anthony Smith, who still is teaching at SDSU and who's super talented as a keyboardist and vibes player, and I asked him, that song Wiser. I said, would you go to the studio with me and produce this song, because he was also one of my leaders in combo at SDSU, and he said, sure, but as long as you're in there, you might as well record a whole album. You'll have all these great musicians, and he's somebody who's he is somebody who does a lot. He's not just going in there and doing one thing. He's prolific. So I thought, okay, that seems like a good idea, but it ended up being a lot for me to try to come up with. Like, in the studio, I couldn't just play all these things and get through them. It was challenging, and I had all these really good musicians there. So I guess you could say it was a learning curve for me. But it was stressful, but it also inspiring, because these great musicians were playing all these wonderful things over songs that I had written. So it was kind of like jumping into the deep end for me, but I did definitely learn a lot.
Well, the band is terrific on this album called Jillo, and you also include 3 other pieces that you did not compose, one by Macy Gray, Stevie Wonder, and the other one was Clap Hands, and I forgot the
that's
composer.
Jay Dilla, kind of hip-hop guy.
Okay, that's maybe out of my league. So. But tell us a little bit about your selections there.
Well, they all are sort of... like Isn't She Lovely was sort of, I thought, well, that's about a woman, and, maybe about how she sort of was able to do this journey. And Jill Ker Conway was not sort of a brash person. She was sort of a refined person, not a loud voice, but somebody who just rolled up her sleeves and got the work done. And to me, that has a lot of grace in it. So Isn't She Lovely, I thought. Plus, I love Stevie Wonder, so that's why we chose that one. And then I Try, Macy Gray, we needed a ballad. And also it kind of fits in with that she never stopped working. And Jill Ker Conway talked about being on a farm, how work had to get done, and you could talk about it or you could just get it done. It doesn't matter. So I like that even though I Try is sort of more about a breakup, I just like the title and I like the song. So that's how that one made the cut. And then Clap Your Hands is just something I liked. I just thought it was a cool groove, and it was supposed to be just like a segue on the album. And we ended up including more than just a few minutes because it was just kind of a cool groove. So yeah, that's how that ended up being. The album ended up being what it is.
Well, you have a long and distinguished career here in town as a side player, especially with the Fuzzy Rankins Band, and you're going to be playing with them at Gator by the Bay on May 9th.
Yes, yeah, and Fuzzy's been doing that a long time. That's a fun festival, and yeah, we'll be at the Bourbon Street stage at 7:30 on the 9th, so stop by.
Also, you've been a longtime performer with the Coronado Big Band, about 10 years, you say, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to be with that band through various changes, and right now the band is really kind of in an exciting phase. We've got Rolf Olsen leading the band, and people are excited about it, and so the big band is doing some fun stuff too. I think we have some festivals coming up, one in Poway, and then we have Solana Beach Festival, I think in August.
Yeah, I see the Coronado Big Band is scheduled for May 16th at 2 p.m. at Old Poway Park for the band festival there. Also, a gig on June 28th at T.O. Leo's in their series.
Yes, we have some exciting things coming up with Coronado Big Band. We're doing interesting music. We're doing some typical big band music, but then we have, stuff by Radiohead and interesting modern stuff. So it's a fun gig to listen to because it's surprising as well as fun to hear stuff that you would expect.
And listeners can also look for you at the U.S. Grant Hotel performing there occasionally.
Yes, I will be there May 8th doing a duo with Grant Clarkson, a great local bass player, at the Grant Grill. I think that's like 7 to 10. But that's a fun gig just to hear some jazz.
All right, Hindy, where can people get more information about your album and your music in general?
I have a website. It's hindybare.com. And the CD is also available through that. It's also available on streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, and other places.
It's called Jillo, the debut album from my guest, Hindy Bare, on this week's edition of Inside Art. Hindy, thanks so much for joining us on the program. Great to meet you and hope to have you back again.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. I really enjoyed it.
Hindy Bare's debut album, Jillo, is available on CD and digital downloads and can be purchased at Hindy Bare's website, hindybare.com. Hindy performs with the Fuzzy Rankins Band at Gator by the Bay, Saturday, May 9th at 7:30 p.m. on the Bourbon Street stage, and with the Coronado Big Band, May 16th at 2 p.m. in Old Poway Park, and June 28th at 5 p.m. at T.O. Leo's. Inside Art is made possible with support from the members of Jazz 88.3. Replays and extended versions of every Inside Art broadcast are available online at jazz88.org/Inside Art. Our theme is created and performed by Bill Mays, whose music is available at billmays.net. Again, my thanks to Hindy Bare and Herbert Seguenza. For Jazz 88.3, I'm Dave Drexler. Join me again on air and online for another edition of Inside Art. Jazz Inspired is next.